Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the next of our In Conversation With series of interviews. This time round, we are joined by the lovely Julie Pettigrew, who is Executive Assistant at Jumar Solutions. Hi, Julie. How are you doing?
Hi Dan, I'm well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
That's okay. How have you been throughout this whole, the pandemic, etc.? How are things for you moving along at the moment? Are you finding there's a big shift in going back to the office, or what's kind of been your busy points at the moment?
We've actually had, we're moving into a bit of a hybrid where people can come into the office if they want to, but we're not expecting everybody to come back. And I think a lot of companies are going down that route. And that's worked really well for us. We still have to book a desk, so there's desk booking system, and we still follow all the government guidelines, so people are still socially distanced. So yeah, it's worked quite well.
And I think when we spoke last time, you were just about to go into the office for your very first board meeting, weren't you?
I was, yes.
What was
And it,
that like?
do you know what? It was great to see everybody face to face, and not just be rooted to your screen when you're doing them, because they're long board meetings. So it was really good to just see everyone. Face to face is so much better when you're doing a board meeting.
Yeah, 100%. I think I've been seeing so much on social media recently with people saying how much value they're getting out of the meetings now that they're back to face again. There's just a lot more interaction. There's a lot more positivity in the room. It's not kind of so forced on
Yeah.
on platforms like Zoom or Teams, for example. Everybody gets their say. So I think it's really exciting. I'm sure I could see lots of heads nodding on here as well. I think a lot of people seem to be in maybe a similar situation, but it'll be interesting to get your feedback as well in the chat box as we go along. So I'm really keen to kind of take it right back, Julie, take it right back to where it all began. For those of you who might not know, on the call today, Julie was actually winner of it was the first time last year we put in the Lifetime Achievement Award. Absolutely brilliant category. It was a fantastic one to review. Great to see the candidates that came through that, and Julie was winner of that category last year at the West Midlands PA Awards. So congratulations, Julie.
Thank
That's
you.
why I'm really keen to kind of take you back to where it all started. So what for you made you kind of come into this profession, and how did that happen?
Okay, so many moons ago, I left school at 16, and I went on to a YTS scheme. And at school, I'd actually learnt typewriting and shorthand, and it was the one thing that I just absolutely loved. So from quite a young age, I knew what I wanted to do. So I left school, joined the YTS scheme, and I was really fortunate because I was placed at Price Waterhouse. And so I'd got this huge corporate, loads of other people on my scheme were put in all these other different places. And I was like, oh, fantastic, I've got a really good place to go and work. And that is what set me off on my journey. I was really lucky. So I stayed there for 11 years, and I worked my way up from junior secretary, manager secretary to partner secretary. And after 11 years, I decided that it was time to spread my wings. So I left there and I went to Ernst& Young, and I worked for the head of corporate finance. And I also took on managing a team of admin PAs. So I stayed there for 7 years, and then I left there to have my family. So I had two children. So I took 2 years out and had a little career break. Um, then when I decided to go back into work, I did a couple of part-time roles. And then I got a role at Rexel, which was an electrical distribution company. And I stayed there for 2 years until they relocated to Hertfordshire. And that's when I got the role at Juma.
Okay, fab. So just take us back to those. So when you're talking about when you worked for Price Waterhouse, for example,
Yeah.
those you obviously mentioned there, I think you worked in four different positions. What were those positions like? Did those was that quite a fast period of time? And do you find that those positions were readily available because there's a lot of staff at PricewaterhouseCoopers, for example? or was it that you would find that an internal position would come up and that loads of people would apply for it, and that was quite tough to kind of get through during those stages?
No, it didn't actually work like that. It was more that you were promoted because they did have a very good promotion scheme in place. So if they felt that you were doing a good job and you got to your appraisal, yearly appraisal, they would automatically promote you if you'd done everything that they thought that you'd done well. I think when I got to partners secretary, I think that was a position had become available. And so I automatically moved into that role as well. But again, I was promoted. And at the time, and I am talking many moons ago, I was the youngest PA that they'd had at PW.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, okay. So great promotional opportunities then, in those larger organizations. And then
Yeah.
obviously when you move to Ernst & Young, obviously all the experience that you got working for PwC helped you to kind of, was it a very different company to work for? Did you find there was quite a lot of similarities there?
There's a lot of similarities, but I worked for a different department, so again that was different. So it was all new to me. As I'd worked in corporate restructuring previously, and then I moved into the corporate finance world, which was totally different because it was really fast paced. And yeah, and also obviously I took on managing an admin team, which I'd never done before as well.
And what was that like working in a larger corporate, managing an admin team? How big was your team?
So I had a team of 5, and I'd never done it before. So it was like, oh, what am I going to do? But do you know what? I just used my personality and my persuasive skills, which I've always used in life. And I had a really, really good team. So it didn't make my job difficult. And I don't micromanage, and I never have done. And I think that is what put me in good stead, because the team didn't feel as though I was coming in and watching their every move. I'm a true believer that if people do a good job, that you shouldn't have to micromanage them. And I think that's what made me do a good job at it.
Are they still in touch today? Do you still know them?
Yeah, there's 3 of them that I worked with that I still meet every couple of months for dinner.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, brilliant. And did you find that helped you as a manager being put in that position? Did you learn lots of different skills yourself? Particularly dealing with people, for example. I think it's a lot when you've got that kind of managerial side on your shoulders. You care about your team so much. You care about their performance. You want them to do well, and ultimately you're measured on that performance as well. So I bet you must have been buzzing when everything was when everyone was performing really well.
Yes, absolutely. And it was a real learning curve for me, because I actually had to see things from a different perspective. So not only do you want the team to do well, but yes, it's on your shoulders as well, because it goes from the top down. But I've got a very good relationship with my team, as I have had in previous companies. And I think if you can support and be on their side, and they know that you've got their back, you will 100% get everything out of them that you need. I can't fault my team. They're absolutely fantastic. They go over and above all the time. And that's because, the way that I am with them, but the way that they are with me too. So we've got a very, very good relationship.
And I know throughout this rewards process, how much contact you've still got with EY as well, which is great. And then you went on to Rexel, didn't you?
Yes, that's
Did
right.
they used to have an office by the airport?
No, they were based in Five Ways. Oh yes, sorry, Dan, they did. Yes, because there were various arms to Rexel. So one of their arms was actually near the airport. Yes, you're right.
And was that a completely different? What was that a completely different experience? Because obviously that was coming into a completely different sector there as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So electrical distribution, I've never had any experience of it. But you know what? That's what is so fantastic about being an EAPA, because your skills are so transferable. It doesn't matter what industry you go into, you can take those anywhere. So when I went to Rexall, I worked for the IT director, HR director, and finance director. But again, that put me in really good stead for when I moved on to Jumar, because I moved on to an IT company. So I'd already got some knowledge of the IT side of things.
So how did that opportunity at Jumar come about? How did that happen?
Okay, this is a really interesting one. So I was actually recommended to Jumar by a PA that I'd met while I was at Rexall. And she put me forward for it. So I went for the interview and I thought, oh, that went really well. I've nailed it. I'm going to get the job. It's not a problem. But part of the interview process was we did Thomas International Profiling, which is like a DISC profile. It's all about your traits at work. And I came out as what is known as a high I. Now, a high I person is somebody who is quite talkative, who very positive, very communicative, the sort of person that would walk in an office in the morning and go, morning, rather than somebody that never said anything. And so I actually didn't get the job because they saw my profile and they said, all she's going to do is walk around the office and talk to people. She'll never get any work done. They didn't give me the job. And I was absolutely devastated. And the PA who'd recommended me knew Wendy, my boss, well enough to say to her, I can't believe you didn't give Julie the job. She's absolutely perfect. You need to give her the job. So 2 days later, I got a call to say, we've made a mistake, the job's yours. And 10 years later, here I am.
Oh my God. Fantastic. Well, it just goes to show testimony, though, to the fact that she had such a good relationship with Wendy to say that to her. Because and also with DISC profiling, obviously, it's really interesting and it's great when you actually get to read it. But if it doesn't work, and it can have an opposite effect. I mean, I'm really intrigued. Just a show of hands. Do you use DISC profiling through the interview process? Does anybody use that at the moment? No, a couple of you. It's really interesting because when you actually get to read what it says about, all the profiling, you read it and you think, oh my God, that's really spot on. But to an employer, that can come across. I come across, the color coding, the colors I always come across as a yellow, red. But I'm not a red at all. I don't think there's a bit of red in me. I'm very yellow. But it can come across sometimes to some employers as a little bit intimidating sometimes.
Yeah, I think what you have to do is you take that, but that's just a snapshot.
Yeah.
Rather than it making the judgment of whether you do or don't take somebody.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And what was it like then when you first, so did you take over from somebody at Jumar, or was this a completely new role?
No, the role was already there. So the lady before me had already left. So actually, although there had been somebody there, it was like taking on a completely blank role. But I do that anyway. If I'm going to start a new job, I'll always make it my own, because every EA and PA has got something different to bring to the table. So you don't want to fill somebody else's shoes. You actually want to make your own mark. And what was important for me when I got to Jumar was to get to know everybody in the business, every department, so that I could have an aerial view of what the business did, so that I could work with Wendy how she needed me to. So that was the most important thing for me to start with. But the other thing was, Wendy was the first C-suite woman that I'd ever worked for. So historically, I'd only worked for men. And in the past, and I'm not tarnishing this brush to every woman who is in a high profile position, but in the past I had come across various women that actually put me off working for a woman. So when this position came about, my actual initial first thought was, oh, I don't want to work for a woman. She's going to be a nightmare. But I got to know Wendy, and I mean, even at interview stage, I knew I'd get on with her like a house on fire. But what was important for me, going from a corporate to an SME, as an SME, you are in a much smaller environment and you know a lot more about the company and what's going on. But because Wendy wears so many hats, including, you know, she's got a family. So she's not only a CEO of an IT company, but she's got a family as well. I decided right from the outset that I wasn't only going to support her in a work capacity, that I was going to support her in a personal capacity as well, so that she could focus on the strategy of the business. So anything that she needed doing of a personal nature, I did it, hands down. It wasn't an issue. And one of those things, and I have to tell you, and I'm going to try not to go on too long, but I have to tell you the story of the dress because it's really important. So we had a Christmas party coming up, and the week before, typical Wendy, lastminute.com, I haven't got a dress to wear, I haven't got a dress to wear. I've seen one online, but I can't get it anywhere, can't get it in my size. So I said, okay, give me the details. So I trawled the UK and couldn't get it anywhere apart from one place. And that was in Birmingham Airport, the wrong side of the gate. So I phoned them up and I got this lady on the phone and I absolutely begged her. I used all my persuasive skills. Hi, I came out and it worked. And I said, please let me have the dress, please. So she agreed to come and meet me on the concourse, bag in hand, me with an envelope with the cash in. I did a handover and I looked like I was doing something really dodgy. And yeah, and I got the dress, and not only did I get kudos for getting the dress and she had it to wear to the party and loved it, but I got it duty free.
Brilliant.
So that is the sort of thing that I would do for her of a personal nature, but that has a massive impact to her and her business for her.
Yeah, no, definitely. We'll just look at the chat box here. So we've got Tracy says that your career history almost mirrors hers identically.
Oh, fantastic.
Adele, so we use profiling. She's put now that she's really clicked with the female CEO, and they feel privileged to have each other, which is great. Many congratulations on the dresses. That's brilliant. So it takes time, doesn't it, to build those relationships and build those bonds with each other. And I think there is sometimes a difficulty with the blurred line sometimes of where, but I think if you consciously made that decision and that's what you wanted to do, and you've been able to support her in her personal life, which then means that she's been able to kind of, you know, make even more of a positive impact to the business. I think that's fantastic. So do you still do things like that now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, there have been times that I've taken her sons to the dentist. I've been over to her house and done all her personal filing. I will do whatever she needs me to do. That to me is my job. So that she has that time and space to grow the business, which she has done. You know, we've had loads of change in the 10 years I've been at Jumar. The company's grown from 25 when I first joined to 120. We've been through a transformation, we've been through restructures, you know, even and personally for myself over that 10 years, there was a period where I did HR and payroll for 2 years. I've never done it before. I look after the Australian entity and have to get people to Australia and back. And I've got people when COVID hit who were stuck over there. So, you know, there were times that I was up at 6 in the morning or 12 o'clock at night doing what I could to get people back safely. To me, that's my role. I will do whatever I need to do to help the business and the company. But I think that is the slight difference when you work for an SME to a corporate.
So what would you say over, you know, over your career, what would you say has been some of your biggest challenges then?
I think one of the challenges for me, and it's not actually even career-wise really, it was when I had my 2 children and I came out of it, that was my biggest challenge. Had 2 years out, loved it, and then had a real knock of confidence because technology moves on so quickly and you almost feel left behind. So for me, I think that was my biggest challenge because I'd worked from 16 and I'd worked right the way up till I was 36, then had my 2 children. It was like, oh no, I'm going to go, I don't think I can go back into it. I had a real knock of confidence. But you know what? I thought to myself, you've worked since you were 16. You know, everything you do for your family. And that was my driving force. And I thought, don't be so ridiculous. Pick yourself up, dust yourself off, get back out there. And I did.
And I think, I think if, you know, not to relate it to that, but so much, but people who maybe don't have children as well, I think that was a lot of feeling when we first went into lockdown, was that people suddenly, you know, we didn't feel like we knew what we were doing, what technology we could use, how to use it. People were asking for things left, right and center, and almost we were all supporting each other in feeling that way. So, you know, I've never you know, I haven't got children, but I certainly felt that way, I think, when COVID hit, because I just didn't have a clue. I still don't really know. I don't know how to do breakout rooms on Zoom. I still don't know how to do it.
I have to say, Dan, I think the COVID situation was probably the biggest challenge for everybody. I think, like you say, going from learning how to use different technologies to be able to converse with each other. And even if you'd had a dip in with, we use Teams anyway, but not hugely because you were all in the office to see each other. So that was a massive change. But you know what I found really helpful? And I'm not saying this just because I'm on this group chat, but I found all of the sessions that you put on as part of the PA forum really helped me. You know, all the different drop-in sessions, all the different ways people were working, and talking to people from the PA forum that were going through exactly the same thing that I was, and getting some hints and tips of how they were doing it. It was very useful.
No, I think, and I always say, you know, it helped me as much as I hope it helped you all, because I probably would still, well, might have been unfair. If I didn't have the forum, I wouldn't have had anything really. I wouldn't have been able to do anything. I would have, you know, there would have been nothing, no work for me to do, nothing to kind of keep bringing everybody together. So it uplifted me as much as, you know, it was tough, wasn't it? Because everybody, you know, it was quite emotional times, lots of people going through it and experiencing their own journeys. And I think the way we all came together was fantastic. And it was so insightful for me to get to know you all a lot more as well, which was fantastic. So, but I think going back to the kind of challenges, what would you say has been your biggest kind of, you know, success in your career? What would be your kind of crowning glory? What would you say, you know, if you look back and you think, yeah, I'm really happy with that?
Oh, well, I think my biggest achievement was last year winning the PA Awards Lifetime Achievements. You know, because that recognises all the years that you've dedicated to your profession. And it was really funny because when I was first nominated, and I didn't know I was nominated to start with, when I was first nominated, my first thought was, oh no. This is my worst nightmare. I don't do public speaking. I don't talk to people in that way. I only like to have a chat with people I know. And I thought, lifetime achievements. How old does everybody think I am? But do you know what? But it was the right award for me, and I'm so grateful for it. And I'm very proud to have won it. The only downside for me was that I lost my mum towards the end of last year, and she wasn't there to see me win that award, because she would have absolutely been as proud as punch.
I saw exactly how much support you had, I mean, you and your sister as well. I saw,
Yeah.
you know, how much support you had on the night. I mean, I'm so sorry for your loss, Julie. And I just think, you know, everyone was so proud of you, and she would be so proud of you, because it's such an accolade. And like I said, we never had that category before. And when we put that category in, it was it is a delicate category, because a lot of people have been in the role for a long time or in the profession for a long time, and they're actually probably the hardest people to encourage to get, you know, to really
Yeah.
come into the light, because they're so good at what they do, but it's really hard to kind of, you know, bring them
Do you
into the
know what
light.
it is, Dan? It's because you've done that role for so long that you almost feel like, I do that job because I love it,
Mm,
and I'm not worthy of an award just for doing a job that I love, and I've done it for all these years. But do you know what? Having been through it, oh, I would hand on heart encourage anybody to go for it. It's opened so many doors for me, and it has enabled me to completely come out of my comfort zone and do things like this. Honestly, 12 months ago, you would never in a million years have got me on a camera. Never. And I've done, this is probably the third thing I've done on recording. And I just feel so much more comfortable now because I've made myself do it. I've pushed myself out my comfort zone.
I think that's a great, you know, incentive for people on the call, is that to try and just do one thing, just that one thing that pushes us out of our comfort zone. You know, I've never done interviews before, but I look at these and I love just having a conversation with people, and we're having a chat with each other and getting to know more about you. And I love that. I think it's great. I don't have experience. I'm not, you know, Samina Ali Khan on ITV. I've never done that before. I've never interviewed anybody, you know. So for me, this has been really, really great insight. But you manage a team, and I know, so I can see Sarah's on the call today. So you manage a team at GMAR as well, don't you, Julie? Do you find that team dynamic is very different in an SME than for perhaps in a bigger corporate?
I think the difference is between a corporate and an SME is in a corporate, you're almost having to be guided by their guidelines, if you like. You can't really veer from those. Whereas in an SME, I am in total control of the admin team. And by that, I mean I have total autonomy. So if I'm the person who does their appraisals, I am the person that will put forward their pay increases. It all comes down to me. I've got my own budget, so it all comes down to me, and that is the biggest difference I've found with being in an SME. I have more control over it.
Mm. And is that something that you never had control over before? And is that something that developed over time, or is that just been in place since you needed to recruit, you know, your team, etc.?
When I first started at GMAR, I didn't manage the admin team. The HR manager who was previously there, she did. Then when she left, and that's when I took on the HR and payroll for a couple of years, I then automatically had to take on the admin team because there was nobody else to look after them. And because I did that, they stayed with me. And actually, I was the right person to look after them. So when we re-recruited a HR manager, she didn't have them. So it was all a learning curve for me. It was, you know, a huge learning curve, but that has come with longevity. So the longer you're with a company, the more you take on and the more you grow. You know, I'm part of the senior management team, so I have just as much a voice as a director does. You know, you are there and your voice is heard and they want to hear it, and they want you to put suggestions forward. And that's what I will always do. And I'm very fortunate to have the role and the position that I do have.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, you celebrated your 10th year there on Monday, was it?
Yeah, 10 years. I couldn't believe how quick it had gone.
Brilliant. I mean, I know Wendy, and what I love is that I know her so well because she puts herself out into the community so much. I was going to networking events, and she would be sat there next to me networking at the level that I was, with everybody, and she would be very much involved in a lot of events. And she was always talk about you, and that's how I managed to get her to nominate you in the end, because I was like, come on, missus. Yeah, I think there was only a couple of days to go, and I said, can you go back to the office and nominate Judy? She's like, I'll get it in straight away, and she nominated Sarah as well, which is fantastic. And I think it's great when you see that level of support and appreciation for what you do, because I think it's great. But again, I think being really active in the community really helps those companies really strengthen their brand within the community as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with Wendy in particular, she, she's got a very open door policy at work. She will talk to anybody from whatever level. It doesn't matter. She's more than happy to go and make a cup of tea and ask the whole floor if they want one, and she'll go and make it. That's what she's like. And I think that's what makes Jumar the Jumar family.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think, how do you feel about networking, Julie? I mean, obviously, I know you said over the past 12 months you feel, but I think we all know networking is, it's like that dreaded word, network. How do you feel about networking?
Do you know what? I agree with that, because before all of COVID and everything, I would do what I needed to do, but I didn't really like it. I'm not a natural networker. But I think going to the PA Forum Learning and Development Conference, the last one that was in person, well, the two that I've been to, going to those, actually, I'd walk in and I'd be like, oh no, I don't know anyone. This is just going to be a nightmare. Who am I going to talk to? What am I going to say? But everybody, what you have to remember is everybody's in the same boat and you're all in the same profession. So you've all got something to talk about. You don't just have to talk about the weather. And once you start to talk to people, it actually becomes quite easy. And I think then going from that and going into COVID and you running all of your PA webinars and everything that you did, Dan, over the 12 months, I think actually made things much easier for me, because I think it is easier. And I think most people would agree it is easier to network when you're on camera, because you don't have that stilted bit where you don't know what to say, because you're in a group and you're all talking. But saying that, I don't think you can get away from the person-to-person networking. I think you need to look somebody in the eye and you need to see what their mannerisms are and what they're doing. And like you, Dan, I'm a very hands person. I constantly talk with my hands.
And I think what will be really interesting is I can't wait to see what relationships blossom when people actually do now get to meet each other face to face, because when we start organising those events again, and I am very much in talks at the moment to get some monthlies back out there again, which should be great. I think it will be fantastic to see those relationships strengthen even more. So what's the kind of future like at Jumar? Is it really positive? What's the vibe like there at work now? Is there been a lot that's changed, that has changed, for the future? Things that would never have really been considered before to
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the biggest change is the working from home. Pre-lockdown, it was almost frowned upon if you worked from home. I think there was probably a lack of trust, but because everybody had to work from home, and we've now realised just how productive everybody is, probably more productive in a lot of cases, I think it's just that's the biggest change for us, moving to a hybrid model, and people being happier. Over the course of this COVID and lockdown, we've done we've sent a lot of surveys out to staff to make sure that they're okay from a wellbeing point of view more than anything. And so we've had a lot of feedback, and a lot of it was to do with people liking working from home, but from a hybrid model, because people don't just want to work from home 5 days a week. A lot of people still want that interaction with people in the office. So I think that's been the biggest change for us.
And do you think, interested in a show, like a show of hands, how many of you feel that you work more now you're at home? Yeah. I think it's interesting, but a show of hands if you feel that you've got the balance right, if you feel you've got it balanced. So do you work from home more, but do you get those things done in the day that you might, or do you get that wellness time in the day? Is there quite a mix? Because I don't know about you, but I feel like we're almost working harder, more, maybe sometimes more hours at home, but actually we can do more things at home because we are at home. So for example, going out for a walk in the middle of the day, or if you were working in the office, did we used to go out for a walk at lunchtime? I don't know whether people did, or whether that they factored that time into the day. But how do you feel about it, Julie? Are you coping with that kind of balance?
Yeah, I probably do more hours, but like you say, Dan, I fit other things now into my day. So when my mum passed, I had her dog, who I've now still got. So I have to walk him every day. So I have to find half an hour at lunchtime to go and walk the dog. Well, you can't do that if you're in the office, can you? We're really fortunate that when we went into lockdown, we organised PT sessions twice a week, and we've kept those on because people absolutely love them. And those are for 30 minutes twice a week, and we still get people doing them. And it's those kinds of things. I think the well-being of staff is so important. We're doing, it's Mental Health Awareness Week next week. So we have got 2 mental health first aiders, and I'm one of them. But again, that was so important to us to give back to the company, to the staff, and to make sure that they're okay. And I think following lockdown, it was really important.
Yeah, one of the questions actually in here is, will you still continue to do the fitness classes? Because I think that was something that's been really helpful for everybody during lockdown. But is that now kind of that culture stayed?
Yeah, and it will stay. Yeah, I think as long as we've got people still wanting to do it. So what we do a 3-month rolling. So we'll book the PT instructor for 3 months, and as we're getting closer to the end of that 3 months, we get in touch with everybody and say, are you still keen on it? Do you still want to do it? And if we've got enough people, we'll continue it, definitely.
Fantastic. And is there any other projects kind of bubbling under there, Julie, that you're thinking about, excited to kind of get your teeth into over the next 12 months, 2 years?
Well, within Jumar, we've just launched what we're calling Jumar Rocks, and that is a recognition and reward programme. So that has literally just been sent out to everybody, and that is where we're doing monthly incentives, quarterly, a yearly, and they change in monetary value as they go up. But it's just really important, I think, to have that for the staff, and to acknowledge things that they're doing, so that they know that everything that they're putting into Jumar, that we're giving something back.
Yeah, no, definitely. And just to kind of get your insight into what it's like on the other side. So obviously I know Tracy and Narinda on the call today, you've helped me and supported me with the awards over the years. And obviously you're on our awards committee too, Julie. So how do you feel like when that opportunity kind of came about? How did you feel about that?
When it first came about, I thought, oh, I'd love to be on that awards committee. I didn't know whether I'd have the time to commit to it to start with, in all honesty. But so I spoke to Wendy and I said to her, I'm really keen on it. Would you support me if I put my name forward? And she said, absolutely, 100%. So I did, and I was fortunate to be picked to be on the awards committee. What I found really interesting is it's really exciting. like I'm on the other side now, and I'm like, oh, I can't wait for all the nominations to come in, and going and having a look at the venues, and that's all the stuff that I love doing, because pre-COVID, I did a lot of events and organising that sort of thing. So it was great to be able to get back out there and know that we're going to be able to do something in person. And I can't wait to see everyone.
It's really interesting, isn't it? I think when you are like, the reason I was saying is because obviously, implementing a reward and recognition scheme internally, but also working on one externally as well. I was just seeing how that you kind of manage that time, but I think a lot of people aren't surprised at kind of how much work goes into it. But it is, as you say, it doesn't feel like it because it's really exciting.
Yeah, and I think that goes with anything. If you enjoy what you do and you're excited about it, it doesn't feel like a job. You're doing it because you love doing it. But I would say that about my job in general. I absolutely love what I do, which is why I do it. But it's not a difficult job to do because I like it.
So if you were to kind of share any kind of final nuggets of advice for anyone that's on the call today about, maybe they might be thinking, there's been so much chat. I must have had about 3 or 4 emails today of people that are moving into really different roles because there might have been restructuring, or opportunities that are coming up. If you could kind of leave some nuggets of advice for anybody on the call today, what would you say?
The biggest piece of advice I would give is push yourself out there, get out your comfort zone. I didn't do it until much later in life, and I wished I'd done it earlier. If you want something, go out there, grab it and get it, because you can. Everybody can do what they want, set their heart on. If you've got a goal, you can get it. I mentor 2 people, one internally, one externally. And I do that because I want to give back to them all of the experience that I've gained over the years, and so that they can have a proper career path, they can grow. I can see them flourish, and that is what it's all about.
Yeah, 100%. What a great nugget of advice there to kind of close on. We are going to stay on for questions, so I'm just going to stop the recording now, but I would just like to say a massive thank you, Julie, for joining us today, because it's been an absolute pleasure to spend some time with you and get to know you a little bit more. So thank you very much, Julie. I'm just going to stop.
Thank you for having me, Dan.